tonight is the first time in that football is taking center stage across America right here with the Game Day Classic. And we're happy that everybody out there is safe. You keep your families and yourselves safe. But this is the modern world we're in. Game Day Classic, Middletown, New London, and we've got the Romans, Coach Juan, and player Hunter. We've got quarterback Danny Miranda, and of course the toast of Whalerville, Garrett Burdick, who was just a young pup back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day.
And thanks for joining us, guys. Mike DeMoro on as well, and this was back in the infancy of Game Day. Mark Brown was the play-by-play announcer. This is what we call PD, pre-doctor. The sports doctor was not yet part of Game Day, and those broadcasts really launched us, and this was a big one for us. Just first thing I'd like to say is, looking back now, as you guys just reminded me that you're in your 20s, looking back now, when you see the first half of this game or you think back on it, what are some of the thoughts? Hunter, let me start with you. What do you remember about this game?
I think first and foremost, I remember it was real cold. I think it was the coldest game we played that year, like 20 degrees or something like that. But I was talking about it with one of my friends earlier, just trying to remember the memories I had going into that game. And it was definitely one where we knew our backs were against the wall. We had 2 losses already in the year. And if we had lost that one again, we'd be done for the year, essentially, as far as playoffs go. But, we understood that was our one shot we had to take, and we went out there and did it against the odds of everyone else believing whether or not we could do it. But, it was definitely one of the craziest experiences of a high school athletics I ever had.
Yeah, definitely.
Danny, what do you think? I mean, be a quarterback on that stage. That was kind of one of your first big spotlight games. Not like you hadn't had a few already from the previous year, but it was one of the first big time, games for you.
Yeah, definitely it was. I think the main thing that I can take out of the game was that, like Hunter said, our backs were against the wall and we really faced adversity and we came through on top. And I think that it was a really good experience to share it with my teammates. And Coach Mage definitely gave a good halftime speech, and it was a really cold game. So just overall a great experience for sure.
We got Jelani Lucas on the call with us as well. What's going on, my friend? How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. What do you remember about that night?
Man, what was that, like 7 years ago almost?
Yeah.
It was cold. It definitely was cold. The only thing I could really remember was I ran the wrong route and ended up catching the ball to set up the game when it's play.
Well, that was the debut of the new stands, the debut of the new press box. And Garrett, you were a freshman, so you were just waiting around for big moments at that point. But you went on to become such a versatile player. You became a star. But at that point you were just a freshman and you didn't have a lot to do. How cold was it for you sitting around there for an hour and a half, 2 hours?
Yeah, that was definitely the coldest game that season, at least. But I don't know. I just waited my turn, and
we don't want to give anything away though. We're going to tease what actually happens at the end of this game.
Okay.
You got to stay on the line to see what the good result.
That's right. So, Coach, you're facing when you look at the pantheon of great players that New London has played over the years. I mean, Dario Highsmith rolls into this game with as good a pedigree as anybody. The Highsmith family, premier football family in Middletown. The kid was all everything, and they win the toss and they say, we want the ball. Right. And they go right down the field and score. They recover that weird onside kick. They go right down the field and score. You're the defensive coordinator at that time. What's going on with you? Do you remember what you were thinking, and what adjustment did you make? Because then you stoned them the rest of the half.
Well, honestly, I was thinking, man, we're about to get our backs beat out. And then actually, I can't take credit. One of our defensive line coach, Brett Maynard, he came up to me and he says, Coach, they're not going to throw the ball. Let's throw another lineman in there. And it was a good observation on your part during the game. He said, we almost had a goal line situation for the rest of the game. And we put him in there, and that freed up, some players to do some things and be athletic, and that helped out quite a bit. But I wish I could take credit for that, but that was all Brett Maynard.
Hunter, you had a lot of of that role. They were trying to free you up in that game, try to give you some open shots at Highsmith. How tough was he as a player? What do you remember about him, and what do you remember just about your role in that defense?
I remember going into it that week in practice, Coach Maynard telling me, like, hey, man, you really got to make sure you're squaring this kid up. He's elusive. You got to be there. And I was like, no, I got it, man. I got it. And then he was every bit as elusive as they said he would be. I remember he actually broke away from me at one point, and I was like, man, I don't think everyone ever breaks away from me in that type of situation. And then on one of those option plays that was just shown in the second quarter, I remember the play was, if he's running speed option, I've got to take this kid, run through his chest, make him pitch, run through his chest. And I was so excited to get a chance to hit him. I more so Euro stepped into the hit. It was weird. I was like, and I missed the chance to really deliver a blow. But, obviously he was a tremendous competitor, great kid. I actually ended up meeting him later on about the next year when we were both getting recruited by some schools and hung out with him. He was a real good guy. But, yeah, he was one hell of a player. And as far as my role in the defense, yeah, it was definitely it was an honor playing with those guys. I was looking at the lineup just now, and that was a fun group to be around. A bit of the tactical leader there, but there's a lot of heart in that team. And you got a lot of athletes too.
Jelani, I see you laughing down there. What are you thinking?
What are you thinking,
No, it was definitely a funny group of people. There's a lot of comedians on the team.
That was a good season.
Well, I noticed that because when you guys came on the call before we were on, as soon as anyone would sign on, each of those people on already just kind of smiled and laughed. Or it was just you instantly fell in it. I think when Danny and Garrett saw each other, just kind of chuckled. And as a very old man, I remember Coach and I go back a lot longer, but there are certain teammates that no matter when you see them, you just chuckle because everything kind of comes back to from those days. Danny, you were playing quarterback and facing probably the biggest defensive line you had seen up till that point. And on the offensive side, their line was big too. You had a lot of pressure that night. What do you think back on as far as running for your life in the early part of that game? And did you think you guys were ever going to be able to get something going?
I mean, before the game, a couple of days before, I found myself going on maxpreps.com, and I remember this moment. And I looked up their height and weights just to get a gauge on how big these guys really are, and they didn't really seem that big to me. But then when it got time to go on the field and see them in person, it was like standing behind two twin towers. It was crazy. Or whoever those brothers were, what were their names?
I just watched the first half.
The Bednarz brothers.
Bednarz, yeah.
Yeah, they were huge. But, I mean, our offensive line definitely did a great job. We were undersized, but they did a great job keeping me protected in the backfield there. A couple of times I had to roll out and make a quick break or something. But I definitely dedicated most of that game to my offensive line. They did a great job.
While we were talking, one of the names, we were talking about the players in that game that I hadn't thought about in a while. Oren Park, the running back, who just was one of the. It feels like every couple of years, New London churns out a small running back that's impossible to tackle, and he was such a beast for his size. But we mentioned Jose Garcia. Tell me what I want each of you to give me your thoughts on any of the players that when you looked at the first half or when you think back on that team, any of the players that pop into your mind, you were saying, man, we forgot what a stud Garcia was. Well, what other guys come to mind for you looking back going, I forgot how good that guy was.
I mean, with Garcia, I just remember his heart, and he was like one of the truest competitors on the field and someone I've always admired as far as who's going to go out there and pour their heart out with me. Because, we were real passionate guys. We really loved playing for our city and really loved playing ball. And he was the example of that.
What about you, Garrett? Who do you think back on?
Oh, me?
Garrett, you left and went elsewhere, and you ended up playing with a lot of great players yourself. But when you look back at that team, who did you look up to? You were a freshman. Who did you look up to on that team?
Yeah, it was definitely Jose because he was crazy. He was just crazy fast, and when he ran like sideways. So it was wild. So like he could cut like whenever. Like I remember one game he had like 5 touchdowns I think against like East Lawn. But definitely Jose and probably on defense it was Hunter. You know, Hunter definitely set the tone like every game. So that's probably them two.
Danny.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think thinking in terms of the most passionate players in the field of my year, definitely it definitely probably should be Mikey Commander. Mikey Commander was a tiny guy, but he had a couple of explosive plays where you just sat back and you thought to yourself, how the heck did he do that? You know? Huge heart, too. Small guy, big heart.
The Commander is known for their, sort of tenacity. The whole family is a tenacious group. And speaking of tenacious, coming late to the party, Nico Ramos.
Hey!
Nico.
How you guys doing?
What's going on?
Listen, if you were late like this back in the day, Coach Roman would have gone up one side and the other of you. So
I would have had to run hills, you know?
It's good to see you, man. And
Sugar Hill.
Jelani was just saying a minute ago that when he thinks back, Lonnie was saying that that team had a lot of comedians on it. And why do I have a feeling that when people think back on you, they're going to think back on you making people laugh over the course of your career?
I don't know. People just didn't take me seriously. I don't know why.
Tell you what, though, you had some big plays in that game.
I know.
And that for you guys had some playmakers, and all the talk going in was Middletown's playmakers, and they certainly did. Highsmith and Jackson did a number on you guys early, but you guys really stepped up, I thought, and showed probably more team speed than Middletown had seen from anyone else.
I mean, they were definitely a different team that we faced. You know what I'm saying? Because we did face some weak teams the beginning of the season. So this was just it was different. And then when coach just talked to us in the locker room, you know what I'm saying, and we got our mind right, and he just expressed that we just need to just go all out and just play out with our heart, you know what I'm saying? And
I do, and this was one of those games that since I've been told I bleed green and gold a little too often on the air. This was one of those games where when you guys were down 14-0, I was looking for a place to hide because I had been pumping
Me
up.
too.
Yeah, I bet. But I kept saying about, when you come to New London, it's different, right? You got to walk the hill. You got to show up, and, and the New London kids don't quit. And I think this game was a testament to that. Garrett, when you realized that you were going to have to get on the field and kick that field goal, that we are not saying whether it was good or not. But when you had to go on the field, was that the biggest moment of your sports life at that point?
Yeah, at that point, definitely. Yeah, for sure. The one before I had got blocked. So I was already nervous to even step foot on the field because the one before it got blocked. So at that point I was already like a wreck, but yeah, I mean,
I would say that if you miss that kick, you probably have a different career path than like that. I mean, that launched the Garrett Burdick attitude era right there. I mean, that's where you got your first taste of swag.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah. And I'm grateful for it. So that definitely just set the stage for everything else that occurred in the future and stuff, like even like years down the road. So for sure.
So one of the things that was really obvious to me watching this was all of the ties about family, right? So obviously head coach Dwayne Miranda coaching his son Danny, and Coach Roman coaching his son, and the Highsmith family in attack. But I want to take a step back and talk a little bit about the Whaler family, because that's the one thing we hear a lot about. And I'm going to preface this by saying the Whalers lost one of their own this past week, Derek Lancaster, classmate of mine, Bonehead, for those of you out there who wonder what I'm talking about, who was an outstanding player. for New London. And it got me reflecting when I saw some of his teammates, some of my friends commenting on him. And we talk about this a lot, but you've got some time to reflect now. Talk a little bit about, and I want each of you to go right around, just talk a little bit about the Whaler family and what that kind of feels like for each of you.
Well, as an older member, and for me, it's really important to see these young guys, you know, as you said, grow up, see how their lives unfold. So it's really exciting to see that, and it makes you happy to see them become young men that are doing good things, and it's always a matter of when they do well, we feel great. If they don't do as well, we feel terrible. Like you're always attached to each other.
Danny.
I mean, in terms of me, I think I was in a bit of a special circumstance when we're talking in terms of Whaler family. I mean, I came into my sophomore year into this program that I really knew nothing about. I didn't know anybody. And to this day, I'm still just grateful for them accepting me and with such ease and accepting my dad. And I'm grateful for it to this day.
Hunter?
Having the bit of the opposite experience, I suppose, and growing up in it, seeing from when I was like 7 on, being very much intimately involved in the Whaler family, it was definitely it was such a point of pride for me to be able to go out there and represent my city the same way I had watched other people in the past done it before, whether Jordan Reed, Dom Griffin, going back to years and years of Whalers that I got to see. And then also knowing just how big of a deal that the prestige of the football program was throughout the city up until that time. So it was definitely an honor to be able to, go out there and play for New London and be a Whaler.
Nico.
I'll take it back when PBA days when I always used to go to the games, and the families always used to be there, and that used to bring us together, and always used to go into the football games Friday night. That was great. When they had the hill, when there was still grass on the field. Woo! What you guys know about that?
when the field was in a crater.
First of all, what you guys don't know, you guys still played Friday nights. Coach and I will tell you about the Saturday morning games played on the grass, right?
It was great.
Lonnie, what do you remember?
There's a lot of tradition. It was a lot bigger than football for the most part throughout the town. Tradition-wise, you had like all the alumni even sitting on the hill at Bates Woods watching the game for free. Getting a good, you can hear them coaching. You can hear them coaching up on the hill, trying to coach us and stuff. But no, it was fun. The Whaler football, Whaler being a Whaler, everything about it.
Garrett, talk a little bit. You played for 2 great programs. Talk a little bit about the difference between what you experienced in New London and then when you moved on.
Yeah. So Valley's a good program, but New London was it was the tradition there. It's really like no other. I feel like across the state, and even though I did not everything went to plan and I didn't finish over there, they still embrace me and I still get love over there. So they already know what it is. With me, it's always going to be all love for them, just because that tradition is it's like no other. So just one big family.
Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't ask the transplant. There's no more of a New London guy on the Zoom call than the middle square right on my screen. That's Mike DeMauro, who ironically went to school in Middletown, from Middletown, and has quickly become the number 1 advocate and spokesperson for New London. Mike, talk a little bit about your experience with the Whaler family and with this game.
Well, this game case. Well, first of all, did I hear right? My favorite play in the whole game is the pass late that Phil caught, and I'm thinking that the 2 guys from Middletown ran into each other. Did he say before he ran wrong route on that one?
Yes,
Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
He never told me that after the game, though.
We always used to run the wrong routes.
Danny didn't have an incomplete pass in that entire game, which makes it even crazier because he didn't have one incompletion, and that one play was a great play for us.
Yeah, it is crazy.
No, what I remember the most was making a bet with the guy next to me at the NFA game 2 weeks after, because he thought Garrett was going to miss that field goal.
Oh,
and ended up sending you guys to the playoffs. And I thought, well, after what that kid went through, a couple weeks back, they no way he's missing this one.
That's right.
It's a little deeper, but
oh yeah,
there's a lot of wind that day.
A lot of wind.
A lot of wind.
Juan told me a great story yesterday on the phone about the rematch between you guys, like a month later. Juan, go ahead with that one.
Well, it was interesting when we went into the rematch. I think if we had played them if we had only played them in the playoffs, I think we would have beat them then. But because we came out with that strategy, we made some changes in the first game. So when we came out the second time, Coach Morello, who actually went to school with my wife, so I kind of had a chance to talk to him a little bit more. He said afterwards that they came out with a 9-man line. I've never seen that before. I haven't seen it since. And basically what they did is wherever Hunter lined up, they ran away from him. And so he said to me after the game, I wasn't going to let that kid beat me twice. And so I was like, all right. And it was nice of him. And I know even when at the end of the year, he called me up to let me know that he voted for him for All-State and all that. So it was a really, obviously a flattering thing as a father to hear that. But it was a brilliant move on his part because he literally had a 9-man unbalanced line, which I had never seen before.
Yeah.
Well, this was a fabulous game. Like I said, it was one of the first game day classic. I would be remiss if I didn't just one of the things that I'm interested in, and I think our viewers would be interested in. I'd like to go around and just hear what you guys are up to. Just let the folks at home know, what's one good thing that's going on in your life. I think that would be something that people looking in right now would be interested in. Let me start up at my upper right-hand side again with Hunter.
So right now I'm living down in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm currently working for Cisco Systems in the sales department. It's been a great time since that day on. Obviously went and had a good college football career as well, and really enjoyed myself. And in the past year, as far as something that's been really good is I think I've traveled to 4 different countries in the past year. So it's been a good time lately.
Good. Lonnie, what's going on with you?
Recently, I started working in Montville School Systems as a paraprofessional with special education. So I worked there one-on-one with 2 different students.
How you like that? I mean, it's not New London, but it's okay. How you like going over
there? No, I like it. I like it a lot more than I thought I would. I didn't think I would be fit for the job, but I'm enjoying it a lot. Right now I'm doing online teaching, so that's
very nice.
Also helpful.
Danny.
Right now I'm working at Electric Boat as a design apprentice. So I'm in their 4-year apprentice program and living my life here in Mystic in my house, and definitely thankful for where I am and the job I have and the family that I have. So I'd say I'm in a pretty good spot in life right now.
Nico.
I work at Connecticut Sign Service out in Deep River. I fix LED signs, remodeling, removing stuff, like big signs and stuff. So it's fun.
You look good with the hood, by the way.
Yeah. Well, my hair's a mess. I didn't want you guys to see the curls.
Hey, listen, I understand. I mean, I get it. Garrett, what's up, buddy?
Though.
Oh, well, you still got? There we go. All right, good.
Nah, bro. I'm still living in Old Lyme right now. I was working for a tree service before all this pandemic stuff started going around. Started losing some hours, but still just trying to make my way, just working with my hands and stuff. So,
well, you guys are all certainly young, and the future is very bright. we're gonna wrap it up, and then for the folks at home, we're gonna show.
Case, can I tell you one thing, Case?
Yeah, Coach.
Because I just think it's interesting. Early on, I think Jelani had said that some of the teams that we had played prior to this weren't as talented, obviously, as Middletown. And whenever you get in those games, and like you said, Garcia and Nico and Oren, these guys are all running around and they're scoring and doing so much. And Jelani's doing all the things and special teams and everything else. So we were scoring a lot of points. In every game, the young kids would be like tugging on your back of your shirt. Can I get in? Can I get in? Can I get in? And so during this game, it was just the greatest thing because, the game was so intense. It was freezing. It was everything. And Kent Rays, in the middle of all this chaos, just stopped, turned around, looked at the bench and said, with his voice, none of you want to get in the game today, huh? This is grown man business today. Oh, it was the funniest thing because all those kids were sitting squarely on the bench. They wanted nothing to do with that. Like you said, when you had those twin towers, everybody else out there. So it was just a great thing, man. I just always remember that. Amongst all that craziness, Kent Rays had to point out, usually you guys are all tugging on my shirt. Now nobody wants to get in.
Thank you. I want to thank the Romans, Jelani Lucas, Garrett Burdick, Nico Ramos. I want to thank you, Danny Miranda, Mikey D. I want to thank you all for being a part of the inaugural Game Day Classic call. Let's watch the second half and find out if if Danny doesn't throw an incompletion. Let's see if Garrett makes that field goal.